Train by day, Kyle Wigginton podcast by night, all day.
John Mitchell.
John Mitchell it is there.
Follow the fishing on YouTube.
Since 3 weeks ago, yes, indeed. It's a brand new fishing show on YouTube. It's only been up 3 weeks, and I've got over 3,000 hits uploads. So it's, according to Drew, it's a very good start.
Yeah, that's massive.
Yeah, it's a follow the fishing show, but I'm really working the bank shots. I'm not the kind of guy that fishes all the time and on his day off goes out fishing too. I'm more of a guy that goes fishing because it takes you to some of the great remaining places on earth, that, you know, the wild places on earth. And that's the philosophy of my show. I found my stuff, like on Friday, we went out with a very expensive guide and spent all day on the bayou, and we didn't catch a thing. And I could have gone home and got depressed about it. But after going to sleep that night, I woke up yesterday morning and thought, well, why don't you shoot a how to shuck an oyster video? So I called up Pascal Manali's, which is the first place I ate oysters in the 1970s when I was restoring homes in New Orleans. I had to call corporate because now that's owned by Brennan's. It was 130 years old, one family, and through a series of events ended up in Brennan's hands. And I got through corporate. They cleared the oyster bar out for me for half an hour, and I got a great interview. So that's one of those kind of random things that happened. But I did, as far as my past, back in the 1980s, for 5 years, I ran a fishing and diving club on the Cayman Islands, on Little Cayman Island. And actually we had a house there for almost a decade. And that's where a lot of my fishing skills come from. I'm primarily a catch and release fly fisherman, and that's why we didn't really catch anything in the bayou. If I fish it again, I'm going to go with just throwing shrimp, because you're there just to catch these brute reds. And that's not really the whole spirit of fly fishing. It's more a finesse thing. And at Friday, nobody caught many fish. But again, last year, Drew and I went out and just did shrimp fishing on the bayou, and you can really catch a lot of fish that way. So,
oh yeah, I love doing some fishing. It's something about being out there on the water is just relaxing.
That's what I mean about taking it to great open places where it sort of renews your spirit. The thing of it is, for me, I've changed directions a lot of times in my life. Actually, I have 7 hardcover history books. That's how I've really the basis in my life. But I'm a good, as you know, you've met me as the carpenter aspect in my life, as I restored the Goodbird building several times, and actually was washing your sidewalk last time. I saw you power washing your sidewalk. Well, I can tell you, your restaurant or your bar here really looks great now that with the front restored, and Fret's really hopping since the 7 years my son owns the restaurant next to you.
Yeah, no, I that's how I know you. I know you via Goodbird, which is his son's restaurant. It's right next door to us. It's an amazing place. Definitely come check it out if you're in New Orleans. But yeah, this street has been, it's amazing. It's been really good for my life ever since I came over here. Because when I first moved to New Orleans, didn't know anything about this place. And just by sheer luck, some guy came to me and was like, hey, will you come run my bar on Ferret Street? And I was like, I'll come check it out. And ever since then, I've been over here just like soaking it all in, because it's a really cool vibe over here.
It is. That's how I feel about my son. I love Ferret Street. It's taken those kids in their arms and really making a nice life for them.
So you said you've changed direction many times in life. What do you mean by that?
Well, I graduated from the University of Michigan in American literature, which made me well suited to come down and visit my brother and start working construction, because I don't regret getting that degree. It made me very more aware of the world and how to negotiate it. But the degree itself, was not monetary. So I restored homes in New Orleans for the first 3 years out of college, and had a really nice business going. Really, it was the summers that drove me out of there. And then I moved. I was a Detroit kid. I had a wonderful childhood. We were the last generation of Detroit, being this monster, 4th largest city in the United States that really ran the world's manufacturing for post-war times till about the time I graduated from high school, 1969. and from there went on to college. So then I went into the carpentry business, moved up north, and I copied there was a place in New Orleans in the 70s called the Strip Shop, owned by late friend of mine, Remy Lan. And I'd buy architectural antiques to restore when I was doing the restoration business here. And I went up, after 3 years here, I went up north and started a architectural antique business, which for that 20 years was just a magnificent business. That's when antiques were really hot. And
what does that mean? Like, give me an example of something you would take and restore.
Well, my specialty when I was up north was I bought a lot of wrecking rights from houses that were about to be demolished.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's at that time when I came back to Michigan, the automotive was falling apart. The automotive industry was going through its first big decline and it took the whole what they call the Rust Belt with it. Cities were losing, like Detroit went from almost 2 million people to 700,000 people in about the decades that I was working the architectural antique business. Yeah, and houses were being wrecked on a wholesale basis, just so they wouldn't sit abandoned and be burnt. Essentially, it was chaotic in the Midwestern cities. I was young at the time and was brave enough to go downtown and take valuable parts out of the houses before they were wrecked. I had a lot of stained and beveled glass windows.
Okay.
Carved oak fireplace mantles were a really good hot item for me. I had a restoration room with 3 or 4 guys working in it. So we took stuff that was rough. I bought it rough. In fact, stuff that I would buy, architectural antiques that I would buy, I could sell for people wouldn't have bought them at any price at the condition they were in. But I had pretty much a streamlined shop that I could jazz them up, triple the price, and people were
That's a good deal. Yeah,
it was seriously. I've had a nice career in books too. I've got 100,000 history books in about the Great Lakes in print, 7 different titles, 6 different titles released. I got one in the kitchen right now, but I put that away again for a little bit just because this YouTube channel seemed to be the thing to do. I can tell you, it's a lot more fun than sitting alone by yourself, having to clear everyone out and having concentrating all day this way. I'm a gregarious type, so I like it. It's fitting my personality in late life.
Yeah, I'm a very hands-on guy too. How do you restore a book?
Oh, I don't restore books.
Okay, you just found those books and they were in decent condition. You kept them?
No, I didn't make myself clear. I have written those books.
Oh, you wrote the books?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 6 titles set to be 7 as soon as I get back to the last one. But I wrote a series of 4 illustrated histories for children on the Great Lakes.
Okay.
And that really was very popular. It was before the internet changed about the year 2000, the way schools and educators reacted to books and were switching over to the new digital age. But we got in 3 books before that, and they were immensely popular.
So when it comes to writing a history book, do you basically read other history books and then make your own translation of it, or how does that work? Because I have this really, I don't know. I whenever someone tells me history, I'm like, yeah, it's just your version of it. Like, we don't really know what history is because history is written by the winners. That's a great quote that they have, right? So
I'd have to say that to a degree, but I'm meticulous. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the research. I didn't just kick them out. And I wrote a history book on my highest honor in life. I won the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015 from the Historical Society of Michigan, which is the oldest cultural organization in the Midwest, based largely on a book that I wrote called Grand Traverse of the Civil War Era. Well, I wrote a Civil War book when I was 10 years old. So I had that. I've been interested in history all my life, but you just try every source that you can. And I guess then you make the value judgment. It's on what you're going to write about. Every book is totally different as to how you approach it.
Do you think that with the advent of AI, that history is going to be more convoluted?
I don't know what to say. I'm ambivalent about I'm the generation that's ambivalent about the e-age. I don't know where it's going. I don't really, it's crazy that I'm 72 years old and just started a new business, but I don't know how to answer that question. That's one you're going to have to work on. What I guess I've tried to start to say on that sentence is that I'm probably going to be not here when it really kicks in and the ramifications can become clearer.
Yeah, the ramifications I think are going to be pretty substantial too. But yeah, we'll get back to the YouTube channel. So one of the coolest things about is I watched your videos, and I think that what you're doing is amazing with the shots and everything. I think your shots are great too. I asked Drew about it, and he said you were filming all the stuff yourself.
Yes. But
you do have someone that's cutting it together and things.
I'm an idiot on electronics. Honestly, I can hardly turn on a computer. Shouldn't say that. On all my books, when I've had to tech up, I read up and get to the point of, being able to help with the production. But I have an illustrator for my 4 children's book named Tom Woodruff. His daughter, 20 something, is sort of a savant on the YouTube. I just throw her the rough footage and let her go. It's the same way I worked with her. It's a beautiful circular event that not only her father and I are still very good friends, and for 30 years ago worked together as artists and illustrators, and now she's come into the loop, and she's responsible for a lot of the quality of those videos. I don't have to look over her shoulders on what to cut or paste. She has just that ability we share a mindset of how this channel can look. And she's very excited because she doesn't know much about fishing, and it's a new subject to her. So she's working on, I'm an executive producer for a movie that she's working on about her father's life as an artist. So I'm an executive producer there. I've got her under my wing. Otherwise I'd be lost.
Yeah. Well, I think they look great, and the footage you're getting is pretty great too. So pat yourself on the back for that one.
I've just over the years, I've been in situations that I come to realize as I get older, a lot of people that never even get close to, I just didn't accept my paths in life unless I thought they were extraordinary. I didn't really think of them in those terms, but different, just to stay. I knew at 16 years old, my father was head of the Mopar division of Chrysler. I had, this great wealth, beautiful cars during high school. I always buy them used now. I can never, the Dodge Challenger I drove during my high school, last year of high school, is now worth about $250,000 if you can get one. It was a tri-power 340 anyways. That's another story. But I looked at 16-year-old, I remember the day, I don't know what it was. I was near an expressway or something and traffic going by. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to, I know this is a important business, all Detroit and the muscle city. And it's provided myself a great childhood, but it wasn't for me. I knew I was going to be picking the different paths. And indeed, except for running I live in Leelanau County, Michigan, which is now in the Northwest, about 250 miles north of Detroit. It's a peninsular county. And I went as a junior, it was all sort of together. I went in junior and help on the cherry shaking cruise, which Leelanau County produces 60% of the nation's sour cherries, which are the ones that go into pies. And I just knew that I wanted to try that kind of life. And then again, after college, I went to New Orleans and visited my brother, and just coincidentally got into the restoration business and trained myself as a carpenter. And that's been, as you see, a useful trade all my life, as I came up with. These guys were sort of floundering when they were changing locations because so much came at them. But for me, it was like, okay, I came in and I said, this will take me 100 hours. And it was 98 hours. Oh, wow. So, just the ability to know what you're getting yourself into is sometimes as good as the skills.
Well, I think just working with your hands is an ability that most people don't have these days. So, I mean, it's a good skill to have, especially when it comes to building things and carpentry and stuff like that.
I love it. I did my major project until I wouldn't have been able to start this YouTube channel. Is last year I finished a 5-year restoration on an 1858 house in downtown Northport, which is at the top of the Leelanau Peninsula, and it's beautiful. Honestly, it was it was crazy that it was a house that was nearly torn down a couple times in the evolution of the newly popular Leelanau County. When I came up there, it was one of the poorest counties in the lower peninsula, but super beautiful, pretty much all cherry trees. Now it's become the kitten of Michigan. And now is the richest county. I can't afford. I bought a lot of stuff as a young hippie, honestly, there because it just seemed so stupidly cheap, and that's now the source of my wealth. Really, I couldn't afford anything that I own up north, and I own quite a few pieces just because it's been found.
What made it so? What made people take over that area?
It's just beautiful.
Oh, it's just
gorgeous. It's part of the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Park. So you got big dunes leading into Lake Michigan. It's still pristine. It's got 2/3 of the land is in cherry farms. So you see that whole evolution of the white trees in the spring and the bountiful, farm equipment around. It's still quite an anomaly.
I don't know how you people do the North. I can't do cold weather at all.
I can't do hot weather at all.
Yeah, I get different strokes for different folks, I guess, man.
Honestly, we've spent a month in the Cayman Islands. They've gone Little Cayman this year. So if you break it up correctly, I don't, especially as in the time when I was writing seriously. I think this last book is the only one. This book I'm working on now that I put aside for a while to work on this channel. That's going to be the last one, because that Civil War book I told you on, that sort of made me famous within the Great Lakes community. It's 360 pages with 500 footnotes. I'm not, I'm no way capable of doing that again. It was I knew at the time that this is your last shot, and I perfectly timed it. The book was released in the day that the Confederates fired on Fort Sumter 150 years later, and it just was a big hit. In our little town of Northport, you wouldn't expect it to be, but it had a serious role in the Civil War because it was the chief wooding station between the steamship traffic between Detroit and Chicago at the time. Custer stopped there twice during the Civil War to relax and unwind. His wife's father was a judge from downstate Michigan, but he owned a lot of farmland in Leelanau. It's just there's a lot of incredibly obscure stories that I came across for the sesquicentennial celebrations of the Civil War. Most of the books coming out at the time were just repackaging well-known battlefield stories. Well, I got a hold of great diaries, and a minister called George Smith kept a daily diary of, I can tell you what the temperature was up in northern Michigan during the Battle of Gettysburg 3 times a day, because he wrote not only the diary, but he was just that kind of guy. It was a perfect, and I've searched all along the shores of Lake Michigan to find another diary of that type, and there isn't one. So that was one of the chief guides. And then a real rabid revolutionist or non-slavery rabid abolitionist had the local newspaper, and he gave a real great perspective. And there was people found out in Northport, which was a city of 1,000 people at the time during the Civil War, with right in the middle of it was sort of like an oasis in the desert. Everything else was just primal forest around it. And the stories and diaries and original letters that I got from people that still lived in Northport, 4th and 5th generation, were really outstanding. And I got lucky, I guess. I was ready for it.
Yeah, it's interesting that people still keep that stuff. I would say in probably, I don't know, I'd say 10 or 15 more years, no one's going to have any of that stuff, because we're all digital now. So, I mean, all that paper stuff that we had in the past is pretty much just going to get washed away.
And as I understand, that digital doesn't last as long either. I mean, it does decay in its storage process. I don't want to go into a topic that I am purposely ignorant of. Honestly, I don't want to. I told Lydia, who was my artistic director on this Follow the Fishing that I don't want to learn anything new. You're going to have to take it all. But she's very excited about it. And again, I'm in this to do this Follow the Fishing, to have a day like yesterday where I can get in and like film something of that shucking was just really enjoyable. And I think will be really a unique one. My best viewed two top videos for Follow the Fishing. One's cleaning a conch, and the other was shucking a coconut.
People love that stuff.
They do the how-to. I think there's thousands of fishing videos. I don't want to compete with those. I've got some good ones, but to work those edges I didn't see any shucking oysters.
Well, those are quick hitting videos too. So if you can do a cleaning the conch video that's 5-10 minutes long, people love that shit because their attention spans are so small nowadays.
I understand that. I was thinking things when I conceptually maybe half-hour shows, but that isn't there. From the month that I've been heavily involved in this, I've learned a lot, and it's the edgy, fast stuff that I think is going to work best. I don't know how we got so popular so soon. That again, it was that conch video. It was an afterthought. It was a friend of mine, Jermaine, who's considered the best, our best person with vegetation on Little Cayman Island. And he was walking by one day. I said, "Would you want to do this video?" Yeah. Otherwise, I only have 2,000 uploads in 3 weeks.
So are you gonna upload your fishing trip on the bayou too?
I have good footage from last year when we did the shrimp fishing, but I just didn't get anything. Everything was sort of just blown out. The guy worked his arse off to put us on to find all his favorite fishing holes. And I missed one fish, a big drum I probably should have had, but it just wasn't there. That's fishing, I never get discouraged about that. Again, I think the more important video that I'm coming away with is the one on the oyster shucking.
Oysters. Yeah. I mean, it's a big time business too. So, I mean, it's going to get some traction off that. I think it's cool. What actually turned you on to making this YouTube channel? At
72, I saw an opening.
At 72, you saw an opening?
Yeah, I don't want to fade away in some ways. And I knew I had a perspective of the world that's different, which is what I set to do. I'm very satisfied with my life. If I die tomorrow, I'd like to live another 15 years at least, but I don't have any regret. I've made mistakes certainly and got pounded on and whipped and all that when you're an entrepreneur and every day have to redefine yourself to make it a living. I was upper middle class family, but I didn't inherit any great wealth or anything, but just keep on going. I think just to have something. I liked it. I liked the fact that Lydia was Tom's daughter and the whole circular affair. And I guess it's the fact that Lydia was making this long movie about her father, and I got to know her better. That clicked I had only a year ago when we were in the Cayman Islands that I discovered the YouTube channel, and I knew right then that it's going to take over. It's just, and it is. It's fragmenting somewhat for how you get your knowledge, but it's a very interesting concept that weakens the whole centralized network and gives a guy like me a chance to have a say. And I like it. I've done a lot of public speaking. I like the theatrics of it. I like looking at 50 people liked what I said today. So the first couple of days, or the first 2 weeks, it was like 300 a day. I'm going, whoa. but it slows down. I got to get used to it. Someday you'll go out after a 200 view day, it'll be 2 the next day, and you wonder what's going on.
It keeps driving you to create more. There's one fisher that I like to watch, and what he does is he'll basically go out, and he's a Japanese guy, goes out in whatever lake or wherever he's at, and he'll build like this little boat. He'll put like these pontoon things together and make his little boat with his trolling motor. And he'll go out and he'll stay like 2 or 3 days on the water, like on this little boat that he made. Nice. And there's something about watching him do that. It's so relaxing. And it's given me a sense of adventure when I'm just sitting in my apartment watching this shit. So I think that's why people love these kind of videos, because it gives you a sense of adventure while you're literally just sitting in your apartment doing, whatever.
That's the theme I'm trying to run through that follow the fishing too, is I'm not a great fisherman. I've had, when I ran that fishing and diving club, I hired guides that are still my friends today from Canada, from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And that's the guys I hang with. But I'm just a common guy, likes to get out in the wild. It's so the videos I'm doing are not trying to be spectacular catch videos or you got a guy that you like that's super committed to that water. I'm not that guy. The guy likes to come home, sleep in his own bed, and maybe be 4 hours on the water at the most. But when I'm in the Cayman Islands and a lot of the shots you see, I really do swim 3 to 4 hours a day on the. It's a small island, 12 by 2. That's completely surrounded by a barrier reef. So that's what you're seeing with the lobstering aspect. I don't kill much, but I do kill a few conch to eat, and lobsters are just too, I wish they'd outlaw them. The restrictions in the Cayman Islands, they're very aware of that the ecology is their livelihood, and it's very restricted. The zones that I could lobster in, my favorite zones have now been no lobstering, but there's still like out of the 24 miles of shore, there's 2 miles that I know every crick and cranny, and but I just enjoy being in that water. So
you ever come across anything that's dangerous in the water?
Pretty much always.
Yeah.
Especially when you're bone fishing in the shallows, knee deep water. There's a lot of sharks around, just that's the way the ocean is. And when a fish gets hooked, it's especially the bonefish, it's scared, and that chemical gets in the water, and the fish get stirred up. I've landed not quite a few, but several half fishes in my life as the barracudas or sharks hit them, and you're out there 100 yards from shore in knee deep water. It's fragile. And I sort of like that. In fact, really what got me now that you asked me, last year, about 13 months ago, I came in from lobstering, and all of a sudden I was surrounded by maybe 3,000 or 4,000 fish doing a circular ball up. And I was in the middle. I moved from about 150 yards from shore to about 100 yards from shore, and the ball stayed with me. And every once in a while I could see that the barracudas were rounding them up. And I missed that on film, and I decided not to get my GoPro then. And I've been a guy that's been, see if the people on vacation taking a lot of cameras, pictures, I'm always thinking to myself, well, just put the goddamn camera down and enjoy the scene. But I've sort of changed now I can share. Again, not that I'm trying to do anybody a favor, but I do get in lots. I still put myself in situations that are somewhat dangerous or just hard to takes years to become comfortable and experienced enough to show other people and beautiful things. That was one of the most, normally barracudas are what freak me out more than sharks, just because they tail you, they follow, you move like this, they move like this. And that
would have been a cool drone shot. Like if you were above looking down on that.
It would have. In fact, Lydia has just bought a drone, so we'll be using some of that. But again, she'll be doing that. I don't want to. I'm stubborn right now. I know my skill set. I don't want to expand it, and I'd never really have been happy with the e-world. I've learned enough to keep me to be able to connect with it at times, but. That's for your generation.
Well, I mean, it's it's scientifically proven that when you get to a certain age, your neuroplasticity kind of like dwindles. Yes. So learning new things does get more difficult.
Yes.
So even the fact that you're branching off into something new at 72 says a lot about you. It's a very.
I don't want to fade away. I just don't. Yeah. I'm not. Drew. He's always on his feet. It's been past the generations, but I like to stay busy. But work is fun to me because I've always worked at stuff that I've liked.
That's what keeps you alive. A lot of people, when they retire, they shut down.
I know. There's so many people that think there's this big life after, that they can do the things they want to do when they're young. They're going to make a lot of money first and then enjoy it. Well, you're too old at that point. You can't start over.
Yeah, it's not really how it works, is it?
It isn't how it's work.
No, we were talking before we got on the podcast about time, and like time is one of the most valuable things you have.
Yes, especially about now. I'm still you're right about the neuroplasticity, but it breaks. You can break through it if you keep it busy. That's what I worry about. Losing the cognitive. I have a good personal trainer now that keeps my body pretty hot, pretty good. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually stronger probably in the last couple of years since starting that. But I'm a person of the mind. The body's always been just a vehicle to carry my mind around. My father was a genius engineer. He graduated from the University of Minnesota in mechanical engineering in 1943 and spent the next 2 years working convoys. He was a 3 theater man, Atlantic, Pacific, and Mediterranean theater. And that was the most, as a percentage, the merchant marine people died was the highest mortality during World War II. I don't know if I knew that. I would have guessed the Marines, but it was the merchant Marines. A lot of that has to do with before they got the micro technology to spot submarines. That's when the fiercest part was 1941 to 42. But he was everywhere. He was in kamikaze convoys, Mediterranean, running the boot of Italy. So, but he came back and he helped develop the 426 Hemi engine.
Well, it's a wonder you're even here then, right?
What?
It's a wonder you're even here.
Yes. I guess I do consider that probably the luckiest part is that he made it through. But that was the one in Chrysler at that time. All the automotive companies were making big money. They ran the world's automobiles. I remember as a kid when we go on vacation, we'd count GMC, Ford, Chrysler, and then foreign cars. And like foreign cars would be 1 out of 100.
Not anymore, right?
Not anymore, no. I have to say I do out of honor to my father. I have a Dodge pickup truck, but my other 2 cars are Lexuses.
You mentioned war again, so I want to jump back to something I wanted to ask you earlier, but I kind of forgot. Jumping back and forth here, but you mentioned that you wrote a book about the Civil War.
Yes.
Have you seen the new movie, The Civil War? There's a new movie that's out. It's called Civil War.
I'll have to see it. I love Gettysburg. That was one of the greatest books or movies ever made. I think. Did you see that about the 3.5 hour movie?
No, I haven't seen that.
That's really good. It is obscure because it's 3.5 hours. But
the reason I was asking about it is because the new movie basically states that we're headed towards a civil war. It shows,
Civil War. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's a modern Civil War.
Yeah. So it shows that we're like going that direction. Do you think that at all, knowing the history of what you do? Because I mean, that's they say history repeats itself, right?
I don't know. We're not at a good place in America right now. It's to be even worse than it was in the Civil War, where you had at least the enemy was a little clearer from north to south. Now it's from neighbor to neighbor as to who you like politically and stuff. Honestly, we don't have much of a choice right now coming up on the elections. I won't try to give away any of my politics on this show, but it's not a great choice. We're not in a good place when you have 2 old white men trying to run for a head guy in the country that needs a really new perspective, a new somehow. I can't say what it should be, but you need a young person in there. Where's John Kennedy when we need him? I guess. Yeah,
I completely agree with you. I think that our politicians are way too old.
Yes.
Yeah,
and they're all way too white and gray haired.
Yeah, we need some fresh young ideas in there. But the way our system's set up right now, it's just it's not meant for those. So the entire system has to change for this to change.
Again, capitalism is in question as we've known it. It's become out of balance. But I spent during the Obama era, I had a cultural permission as a cultural exchange person to go to Cuba, and I would live there off and on for about a year, over 3 years. And communism doesn't work either. It comes down to it. If you don't own it, you don't maintain it, and that's what the problem with Cuba is. It's poor. It's got the richest country on earth has a boot heel on it, so it's tough to go. But it's sad because Havana was the most beautiful city in the whole Western Hemisphere before the revolution, and now it's their buildings were 3 stories. The third story is now knocked down, and the second story X is the roof. Okay, and that's how the buildings are, crumbling from the top down. It's sad because the marble steps on all of them. And But it was a time of great hope, really, in Cuba at that time. I wouldn't even want to go back now, but it looked like the embargo may have been lifted during the Obama era, and that didn't happen. That's to the detriment of both our countries, because Cubans love us. And they got great shorelines. I mean, we could expand. I don't know. It could be a great luxury for United States people in the United States to be open with Cuba. But I understand. I thought maybe communism could work somehow on an intellectual level. On an intellectual level, but having experienced it, it's just the ownership is important to keeping the thing going.
I think we keep trying that one over and over again, the communism thing, and it never seems to work out, does it?
It doesn't. I don't know how. I don't really want. No, it's beyond me what will work. I believe that, and I've read a couple of books lately that sort of have made me think this is after 1970. It's getting to be too late as far as the world's population has gone from, I think it was 4 billion to 8 billion now. And the whole resource thing now can't keep up with the standard of living that we're used to. It's just, we're going to have to the whole world's going to have to step down, or the whole world's going to maybe blow up. That's a terrible thing to think about, but that's sort of maybe where it is.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what happens whenever a species of animals overexerts itself on the environment. The environment hits back, and the species starts to dwindle.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Again, you got to get past color and race and try to go for I think the only hope we have. All these oil companies have their different theories, and they all end up. That's going to all fall apart, but somehow. Maybe there's a chance. Again, I'm happy I was born when I was, even though I'm an old man now. It was a simpler time. Again, just to grow up in the great city of Detroit and to see that just destroyed. Now it's coming back. It's actually a fun city now.
Oh, is it? I've always heard it's just dangerous.
It's changed though,
yeah.
Because when you go from 2 million to 600,000, you don't have traffic jams because the expressways were built during that day,
yeah.
and there's a lot of young people that have revived it. It's still dangerous in a lot of areas, but there's so less people. It's a black city, but a black middle class is really establishing itself, and it's got the Lions are even good now. that's heartwarming. In fact, I think I love the football season. I'm a U of M guy. My son is too, not my older son. And
he freaking loves it, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drew loves.
Yeah, Drew's of heart U of M. But this year, of course, winning the national championship and getting the Lions almost to the Super Bowl. Well, I think I probably won't see that season again. Especially both the coaches have gone now, and
yeah, no, I'll never forget that. I don't really watch sports that much, but we have like a little group text message thread going, and one of the guys was from Alabama. And then you have Drew. And whenever that was going on, it was just back and forth.
And then Drew's gal is at University of Georgia. So I had to suffer through last year, Georgia beating Michigan. And then this year we got back.
So what's next on the docket for you as far as the YouTube channel goes?
I'm working on trying to get a friend of mine, become my partner. He's off and on. He had a horrible fishing winter. He was going to get some film together in Florida, and over his 3-week vacation, it was either too windy or too wet, and really got no footage at all. But he owns one of the quintessential fishery. It's called Carlson Fisheries. They're a whitefish netting gill, one of the few places with a gill netting license. And I'm hoping to get him involved this spring. And I could go out in the gill net boats and film that. They smoke a lot of fish. I want to try to film that one way or the other. I will. It's whether he's a partner in this to some degree. Now that I've got it going, though, I'm getting a little more ownership as to how I'll deal with the ownership. I do want to keep control of it. But again, I'm not worried about it, but I've only got so many years left. He's young. He's the next generation down. And I'm trying to get him in because it would open a lot of doors and give us a lot of more instant to have a 4th generation Great Lakes fishing, commercial fishing family name attached to this venture. So that's one thing I'm looking at. Otherwise, as far as the spring, I will somehow get out on that boat to film the catch and the smoking, the filleting. He's a wonderful filleter. He can take a fish, with all those guys that do it all the time. It's just like an oyster shucker. He can that would be an interesting show, but I'll just see that comes. I've got a lot of stuff on my phone that I need to have Lydia, probably 5 or 6 videos left. And I had that month on the Caymans this year, the first 3 weeks were just really frustrating, and much like my potential partner was, the fish weren't there. I don't know if you've heard of the sargassum grass problem in the Caribbean.
No, what is that?
The mats at the time I was in, this is a Cayman Island ecology expert that wrote the article, but there was a 5,500 circular blob of seaweed floating into the Caribbean.
Jesus.
It's stacks up overnight. So like the resorts have bulldozers on call that every morning they clear off the sargassum, but in places where there isn't a house, the sargassum comes ashore and lets out sulfur dioxide, I believe is the chemical. And the basic substrate that the bonefish live in is in the turtle grass, and that leaching of those chemicals has killed off a lot of the turtle grass on Little Cayman. And I walked the first 3 weeks, I walked to all my favorite places, and there was no bonefish. It was really shocking. It hurt me, just as the change in environment slapped me in the face. I thought it was like trying to surprise, coming in and looking forward to seeing an old friend and finding out they died. And so, but then I took my knowledge of the Cayman Islands and knew where the most of the bonefish were not near shore. They were schooled up in the Sound. And so I got a kayak and tried fishing there and had great luck. And it was redemptive almost. The first, I've got it that's one of the videos, is my fly fishing for bonefish on the kayak. I've never used a kayak before, but went out and caught a bunch of them. But the first one you can hear in my voice, so it just saved me. I was just so disconcerted about losing my bonefish personal reputation that I've caught so many over the years, probably 3,000 bonefish, which not many people have done. But,
no, that's a lot.
But for, we owned a house in the Cayman Islands for 10 years. I wouldn't come back from a trip without catching 60 or 70. So they add up.
What causes the seaweed to build up? Do they know that yet?
They believe it's just messing with the environment, especially the Amazon forest being cut. The river's throwing dirt into the ocean. It's like aquaculture. So all the chemicals of the sea combined with this new layer of essentially mud, soft silt in the ocean, and it bloomed. Yeah. I'm sure it'll probably just bloom once, like a lot of things do, and fade away.
But if it kills off half the fish population on the way through,
I don't know if it kills them off or it drives them deep. The Caymans are tight in that they're not like the Bahamas, in that they're miles and miles of flats. If you think of the eastern tail of Cuba, it sort of tucks down and then it's a mountain range, and then it goes underwater and comes up as 3 mountaintops in the Cayman Brac, Grand Cayman, and Little Cayman, and there's very little flats. Mm-hmm. So that they are not on the inshore flats, but the place where I kayaked, the turtle grass was still healthy because it was in a bigger estuary, like a 3-mile circle lake inside the reef.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I would save that the last 10 days. The first 20, I was just, oh, shoot. I was thinking there's going to be no channel, no nothing. And then the last 10 days, I got enough for a good 10. We've had 4 of them mounted, I think, right now, but I've got another. Lydia's also a beautiful young woman she's a model. She's out in California shooting this month. But when she gets back, we're going to post some more from that, just from that 6 hours that of that chip I have. We've still got a lot sitting on that. Mm-hmm. I've got phone stuff from years past that I'm be working on also. So I've got a lot to keep me busy.
Well, if you ever want to come up to Arkansas and film some bass and catfish, hit us up. We have a little place there in Arkansas. You can
Really?
come get some footage at. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I've had a lot of people offer since then. That's what I hoped. I have no monetary ambitions. It's a tough thing to make money on him, although it might be. I really haven't.
Eventually, if you
I've
keep getting
gone into
views
a
like
lot
you
of
do.
stupid stuff that people would think I'm crazy, and then made it work.
Well, if you keep getting views like you are, you're eventually going to get ad revenue.
Yes,
Yeah. So I mean, there's a way to make money off of it.
it is, but
But if
that's
you're doing it because you're
I
fun,
got
it's
to get
fun.
fishing tackle. That's what I would be looking more for, and fishing spots. So
Yeah.
you just are a prime example of that, and I will probably take you up on that. I don't know if it'll be this year, but maybe in the fall.
Absolutely.
Well, you got a little cabin on there or something?
No, we have our house, but I mean, we have a little like hunting estuary type thing, and there's a pond in it. So that's where I fish whenever I go home.
Oh, cool.
So this past
Big bass.
big bass,
Yeah.
huge bass. Oh my God, huge catfish, a lot of small crappie. But yeah, you can fish around those. But yeah, you catch a lot of fish there. It's nice.
Yeah, I do want to try variety. I'm going to do the Upper Peninsula probably a bit this summer, and I've already had a bunch of guys want to take me on their favorite rivers in the Lower Peninsula. There's still a good fishing possibility. The up north is still pretty virgin. Up in the Upper Peninsula, great little trout streams. I'm going to have to re-gear. I'm more heavily into salt water gear. I have to relearn a lot of stuff. The English have been going after carp for quite a while. They consider it a great fly fishing trip, and we have a lot of carp in the spring. And hopefully that's going to be one of the things I could crack.
Yeah.
I tried to last year, but I got my boat in the water too late and just couldn't find any. I went out about 4 or 5 times, so 3 or 4 hours in places where you usually find them, but they just they disappear down deep in the summer.
Well, John, where can the people find you at?
Follow the fishing.
That's on YouTube. Follow the fishing on YouTube.
YouTube channel, brand new YouTube channel. We had great response to it. I'll be putting up. We're going to be in a lag right now for about 3 weeks to put up new stuff until Lydia, my creative director, comes back and does the technical stuff. But we've got a lot of footage that she can put together.
And just out of curiosity, if someone wanted to read your books, where could they find those at? Or is there a way they could find those?
I'm on the ebooks.
So Amazon or something?
Yeah, Amazon, and they're Great Lakes history books for the most part. The Civil War book is widely read in northern Michigan. I really don't know right now.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the book business has somewhat died.
Yeah.
I got more chance with the YouTube channel now than even the Civil War book, which was huge. Gave me huge awards. Honestly, to win that Lifetime Achievement Award is something like I could never. In fact, my wife laughed at me, said when I told her I was asked to apply for it, and she said, "You're too young for that." This was in 2015, but it came through. In fact, I was unanimously chosen, and that's a super high. That what is your highest honor in life, or maybe highest moment other than the kids and family? That's it.
Oh yeah, that's a big award.
Yeah.
Well, John, it sounds like you got some really cool ideas coming for the future, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Look forward to seeing your growth.
All right, so I've seen you guys' growth here on Ferret Street, and it's a great thing happening here in New Orleans. My son got down here through. I had a crew of 9 people down here working for 3 years before I bought houses in northern Michigan, but he came under very different circumstances. It wasn't my urging. He was headed to L.A. and he stopped to see Leo, and they got together and got Good Bird going. So they paid their dues that 3 years in that little shack down the street. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think you could find a place like that, but it was a great pilot restaurant, and now they got the Plums location on the block, and that's a future. I keep telling Drew, it's hard on him in the summer. I said, you got to work it out somehow, because it's a rare opportunity. And the North he gets more visual stimulation in one day than we get in a month up there.
Yeah.
Up there, it's a more solitary lifestyle. So I keep on reminding him of that.
Yeah, living in this city is very, very different from where I come from as well. It moves faster. The speed's faster.
It's a super stimulating city. Yeah. I can remember when I had businesses, a lot of things confound you and you want to pull out your hair, but certainly as somebody that's drifting through it now, it's just wonderful. It has a mix of danger and but the beautiful architecture of New Orleans has changed my life. That's what really put me on a different aesthetic perspective as how the world might be.
Oh yeah. Well, John, enjoyed the rest of your time in New Orleans. Thank you for coming on the podcast today.
My pleasure, my friend.